Hey guys, how you doing? It's Martin Cliffe here again with another video, and this is the second part in my kind of whole band setup series. As I said in the first part, the idea of this is that I never want somebody else's financial or gear situation to restrict them from being able to play music with me. I want to play with the best musicians regardless of whether they've got any money or not. So today we're looking at the bass rig, which obviously, from my point of view, when I'm using it, starts from the Lull M5s. This is my green one, tuned standard, Bartolini jazz bass pickups, and then behind me I'm using these really quite cool MarkBass bass holders at the moment on the cab. I wouldn't want to use it for long-term storage, but at a gig it's great. And here we have the blue one that was in my guitars update a couple of weeks ago. This is tuned down to D or A effectively because of the 5-string. Bartolini soap bars. Other than that, it's the same bass. It's fantastic. And amp-wise, the rig is, let me come over here if I can. So it's a MarkBass Little Mark Vintage head in the little carry bag, which makes it super convenient, and it stays in place because it's actually velcroed to the top of the cab. And then we've got a Traveller 112 and a Traveller 210, although you're hearing through this the DI from the amp, the DI from the pedal board, and also an ambient mic, so I'm not entirely sure how much you pick up, and hopefully you can't hear too much of the air conditioning because it's starting to get warm in Hong Kong, or at least warmer. So my core signal is pretty clean. And the bass rig itself is centered around a RJM Mastermind 6 PBC, which is a 6-ish loop switcher. You can reorder the loops, you can do all sorts of cool things with it. I've had one on my guitar rig for a while, so it just seemed like the ideal way to set up this bass rig, so to get another one and do that. Cables for bass, I'm actually using these are Suhr XXL, some of the Spirit XXL cables, which I really like. They don't roll out too much at the top end. I like a fairly bright bass sound from the bass itself. The amp then is in its vintage mode, so it kind of rolls off a little bit at the top end, or the old mode, sorry. So yeah, and then obviously the board itself is wired with Evidence Audio, monorail and SAS plugs, because why would you ever want to do anything else? I'll do a board talk through and insert it roughly here. So the pedal board itself is based around the RJM Mastermind PBC6X. This is a red one. They did a limited edition red one, and then they did a limited edition blue one, and I got one of each. Signal comes in via the Line 6 Relay G70, which I know some people have had issues with, but I've not had any problems at all with them. I really like them as a wireless system. They sound good, so can't complain. So under the board we have a bass compressor, which signal hits first. You can also see the Suhr Jackrabbit tremolo, which is controlled remotely. A whole lot of cables. That's the EWS Trilogic bass preamp. The Suhr Riot distortion. These three are all in loops. And then the MXR bass preamp, which I have always on. Basically it's set flat for when I'm using my amp rig, but if I need to plug into something else I can easily tweak that, and it also gives me a convenient DI out if the amp doesn't have one, or if the amp has a noisy one, which some do. And then on the top, MXR bass envelope filter, MXR bass octave deluxe, MXR bass overdrive, MXR bass distortion, and a carbon copy bright. just to give you a better look at the settings on the bass rig, it's set pretty flat, a little bit of a mid-low cut. It's actually quite bassy, so I've had to reduce the lows. That'll depend on the room and the cab and everything else. And maybe at higher volumes it will get more brighter as the speakers start to struggle. I don't know. It's really loud. It's 500 watts, super light. And then going into the 210 cab, sorry, the 112 cab with horn. The horn on that one is set to about 3. It's got a variable knob on the side. And the 210 cab, which I have the horn pretty much off, it might be on 1 out of 10. So I don't want it too bright, but I always liked the combination of 10s and 12s for bass. And there you can see again, just a little bit closer, the little Velcro bass holders. I have one on either side for my 2 basses. And then just to play through the sounds, so as I say, this is clean. If I hit the clean button again, I get mute, which is obviously useful for tuning and such things because the signal still goes out to the tuner. And then I have a preset number 2. This has alternate selections, so it's really useful in that sort of sense. So I can hit a sound, hit the button again, and it'll switch to a different patch, which is usually just a variation on that. So again, this is the clean sound. And then I have a delay that's always available to me. It's on the front row, so it's not in a loop. And there's a few things under the board as well as on top of the board. So there is a Trilogic bass preamp under there, a Suhr Riot distortion pedal, a Suhr Jackrabbit, which is a tremolo pedal that I can control remotely using the function switches of the RJM, and tap tempo it as well as turning it on and off. So that is not in a loop. There is also a MXR bass compressor under the board, which is always on. And I'm powering everything via the Strymon system, the OJ or O high, or however you want to say it. There's 3 of them under there because I needed 14 outputs to make sure everything has its dedicated power. So then this sound I call gritty. Let me turn the delay back off. So that is exactly this other sound except with the MXR bass overdrive on, just for a little bit of extra grind. Very subtle. And then I hit that again and it's a kind of driven tone. Again, these are just kind of cascading levels of gain. So I think that one, so that's the bass overdrive going into the Trilogic preamp, I think. Next I have a sound I call grind, which is the Riot. So a little bit more drive still. And then I have this one I call Filth, which is actually the MXR bass distortion. In fact, I think that's the Riot feeding the bass distortion. So plenty of options for drive levels. A little bit noisy, but not too bad, considering the amount of gain on tap. And then the fourth sound I have set up for effects, so funky is the MXR bass envelope filter. So yeah, a little bit of funk going on there, and I have this subby sound, which is the bass octave deluxe. I think that's also going through the Riot. I really like the Riot for bass. It's not designed for it, but it sounds fantastic. Obviously, really low sounds are not going to work too well. But it will just about track down to A. So that's all I've got set up so far. The tremolo I have to access via the function switches, so I think that's on now. And I've got it on a tap tempo. Again, it's subtle. I like subtle effects for the most part, except for drive on bass, but it's there as an option to me any time that I want it. And the advantage of the effects link feature on that is that I can have it tucked away under the board and control it completely remotely, except for the knob position, from the Mastermind itself. So very, very useful. Pretty simple rig. It all fits on a single mono, I think, is it a small pedal board? It's the one that's basically a Pedal Train Junior in size, but much lighter. So yeah, very convenient. The amp rig is super lightweight, easy to carry. Yeah, put the two basses in my mono double gig bag on my back, and away I go. So yeah, super convenient rig. I have the Line 6 Relay G70 wireless set up, which I can use for it for live use, or I can just plug a cable straight in as I am doing here. So it's a setup that works for me, and a setup that I know my bass playing compadres would enjoy playing through. So looking forward to using it in band context at some point fairly soon. Thanks for watching, guys. Take care, and I'll speak to you soon.